everybody. Yesterday I said I was going to continue my quest for the ring or the questing in the universe of J.R.R. Tolkien with Khazad-dûm, but I lied. Well, I didn't lie, but I actually made a decision that I would like to explore something different for the next while. So something that is actually from the realm of the actual writing of J.R.R. Tolkien, the Saga Expansion, and this one is called Overhill, Underhill, and it's the Hobbit expansion. The Hobbit expansion comes in two sets. You have Overhill, Underhill, and the second one is on the doorstep, which I haven't opened yet. So this is not even in, it's still in shrink. I'm not going to do an unboxing because I've already done that. And as you can see here, I've sleeved the cards already, and I've already played the first adventure, and I found it terribly. But I do want to talk a little bit about it. Now, the normal expansions, so I've got the Heirs of Numenor here, for example, as an example for you, are not based on an actual book or books by J.R.R. Tolkien, but are set in his universe. Some of the characters in the books or from the appendices are also in these games, but some are actually made by Fantasy Flight Games. So, for example, well, when I say made, it means that they may not play any role or any great role in Tolkien. So I believe that actually Bedivere is a genuine FFG character. Now, what we can do is we can look at the actual expansion at the moment that I have open. Because I would like to point a couple of things out. First of all, it comes with 5 heroes, one of whom is a special Bilbo Baggins edition that you can only use in the Hobbit Overhill, Underhill, because it has 0 threat. But I'm not going to show you this one. I would like to show you the other ones. We've got Beorn, who has a threat of 12, 10 hit points, 5 attack, 1 defense. Sentinel cannot have attachments and is immune to player card effects. Beorn does not exhaust to defend. So basically you can defend, but he will actually, against almost all enemies, he will take plenty of hits, but he has 10 hit points. But you cannot heal him because he's immune to player card effects. But, he will hit back with 5. I don't know if I would ever use this because you can't even give him weapons, and depending on who you are encountering. Well, against the Hammerhorns, he would be very good because you have to deal 5 damage to one hero, and then he would still be alive. But it's a thought. And then you get 3 dwarf heroes. You've got Ori, Nori, and Thorin Oakenshield. Now, with these 3 and the already existing from the base game, Gimli, Dain, Thalin, you could actually have a complete hero deck only of dwarfs. And I am going to build me one. And of course we also have a Glowing from the base game. So we in theory could have 7 heroes that are dwarfish to choose from to build a dwarf deck if we so chose. So you have 3 leadership dwarfs. You've got 2 tactics. The other one is Thalin. And you've got Ori, who's Lore, and Nori, who is Spirit. So that is actually really interesting because you could build a really, really interesting dwarf deck. And the ones from the Overhill, Underhill expansion give you certain abilities that depend on you controlling dwarf characters. So, in my opinion, a hero is a character as well, but not every character is a hero. So, for example, if you've got 5 characters for this particular player that are dwarf, you could, you gain 1 additional resource if you have Taurian Oakenshield. Nori gives you the ability that after you play a character that is a dwarf from your hand, you reduce your threat by 1. And lastly, Ori, if you control at least 5 dwarf characters, draw 1 additional card at the beginning of the resource phase. Now, this game comes with dwarf characters as well. You have several dwarf characters, Keely and Feely, for example, which is a very interesting combination. They are twins, and if you get Feely in your hand and you play him, you get to search your deck to get his brother as well, and vice versa. So it's an additional card draw, and you can actually then increase the number of dwarfs that you have in your play area much more quickly than you would normally be able to do that. And then, of course, you have other dwarf characters like the Miner from the Iron Hills. You also have, as far as I remember, there are some in earlier expansions that you could throw in for good measure. I believe that there is one that draws maps or something. Let me check. I think he's yes. You have a Longbeard map maker. When I first saw this, I was like, Longbeard mad maker? Is that some kind of, disease? So this would also be a dwarf character. So spend 1 lore resource to give Longbeard Mapmaker plus 1 quest until the end of the phase. So in addition to, he could be a quester, he could help you. He's also got 3 hit points, which is actually not too bad, and 1 shield, so he could actually defend as well. If he's in your play area, basically he counts towards your 5 dwarf limit as well, or 5 dwarf requirements. So you could actually build a dwarf deck, and I am going to do this. So to look at the actual game, you have 2 adventures. We must away a break of day, which is of course a quote from the song, and over the misty mountains grim. I've played the first one and I failed badly, terribly. In the beginning I was like, oh yeah, this looks simple, but it's not. What I would like to draw your attention to, because I don't want to spoil it, is the artwork. And I have to say that I've seen a huge change in the artwork. What you see here are trolls. Now these trolls look really fiendish with their pointed ears. They look much less human than the hill trolls we would have seen in the journey down the Anduin. In general, I see that, or I perceive that the artwork has gone to being really dark. So here is a goblin runner. Now the goblins in the past did not look as fiendish. I mean, this is a devilish look to it. Here we've got a warg. This warg, when you think of the, this warg looks really like a lycanthrope. It's really gruesome. I like the art, but it's much darker. And here is the golem from this game, or one of the golems from this game. And this one looks sinister. And here he looks like an alien. When I saw this first, I was like, whoa, they've definitely, given him a very, very sinister look. Like I said, the artwork has changed. In my opinion, I don't know if this is just for the Hobbit series. I will check what the second one looks like, and I'll also check the more recent Lord of the Rings non-saga expansions to see if they are equally as gruesome, but I was a bit surprised. And what we've got here, and I would like to point this out because I think Fantasy Flight Games did a really good job, and I'll just zoom out a little. It's a Hobbit period deck lists. The scenarios in The Hobbit Overhill and Underhill take place during the time of The Hobbit, 60 years before the events leading up to The Lord of the Rings. Now, as you will recall, the base game and all of its expansions that are not Saga expansions span the time between The Hobbit and leading up to The Lord of the Rings. So things like, finding Gollum and handing him over to Thranduil, which is basically the quest we undertook in the Mirkwood cycle, is something that happens before The Lord of the Rings actually takes place. Many of the heroes and allies found in The Lord of the Rings, the card game, were not around at this time. For a more thematic game experience, we encourage players to play these scenarios using only cards from the time period of The Hobbit. And I love this approach. To help you get started, we've provided a list of cards for 2 period-specific decks that can be built using just The Lord of the Rings, the card game core set, and the contents of this box. Now, nowhere do they say if these decks would ever be, let's say, successful, but you can try. So you have Gimli, Thalin, and Ori as heroes and allies. 3 Gandalf core set, 1 Beorn core set, 3 Boffers, veteran Axan, 3 times Gondorian Spearmen, 2 times 2 Dories, 2 Erebor Hammersmiths, and Hennamarth Riversong. Interestingly enough, they don't put in the Miner of the Iron Hills, which is actually quite a good character to have, because it allows you to remove conditions. Then events: Goblin Cleaver, Foehammer, Quick Strike, Feint, Expecting Mischief, which is a really powerful card. This is a lore card. It's a lore card. It costs 2. You play it at the beginning of the quest, at the beginning of the staging part of the quest phase, and if any of the cards you draw is an enemy, it takes 2 wounds immediately. And if you then also have Thalin questing, it would take another wound. So you could basically wade through loads of different enemies at that time. Radagast's Cunning, Lore of Imladris. I'm not quite sure what that does. I think it's a healing card. And Burglar Baggins, I don't know this one at all. I have no idea what this is. It could be from this expansion, actually. Attachments: Horn of Gondor, Blade of Gondolin, Thror's Map, Protector of Lorien, Dwarven Axe, and Citadel Plate. And then we have Thorin, Oakenshield, Glowin, and Nori. 3 times Gandalf, Overhill and Underhill. There is also a Gandalf in there that does something different. He doesn't lower your threat. He doesn't do damage. He doesn't do other things, but he doesn't exhaust when he quests. And then he has 4 attack, 4 defense. And he does not leave you at the end of the round unless you say, yes, I want him to leave. But then you have to increase your threat to keep him. Brock Iron Fist, Longbeard Orcslayer, 3 Feelies, 2 Keelies, Silverlode Archer, Wandering Took, Guard of the Citadel, Snowborn Scout, A Very Good Tale, Late Adventurer, Burglar Baggins, 3 times, A Test of Will. Interestingly, and this is an interesting card here. Dwarven Tomb, of course, Ever Vigilant, Sneak Attack, The Galadrim's Greetings, Grim Resolve, Hasty Stroke, Test of Will. And then as attachments, you have Cram, Spare Hood and Cloak, Unexpected Courage, and Steward of Gondor. Now, the Cram is a very interesting card, and this is something that I noticed about this Saga expansion as well. There are plenty of cards that are 0 cost. You can just play them, which is great. And the issue, and Cram actually is attached to a hero. I think it's a hero, or a character anyway. And when this character is exhausted, you can, and this is actually very thematic because Cram is bread, way bread that gives you energy. So basically the character is exhausted, so he has spent time doing stuff, questing probably, or fighting, or maybe he has just defended. Then you discard the Cram, you discard it. You cannot take it back into your hand, you discard it, and then he is unexhausted again, and you can use him again. So there are quite a lot of interesting cards in this, which you could use anyway. You don't really have to use them just here. But I am going to build these decks because I really would like to see this experience, and I really would like to thank Fantasy Flight for going to the trouble of putting this together, because this is really going to be very interesting for people who like myself would like a thematic game, who want to immerse themselves in the story. And I hope you found this video interesting and informative. It's not an unboxing. I can just say that I'm really looking forward to playing this, The Lord of the Rings, Over Hill and Under Hill, a Saga expansion for The Hobbit. And until next time, keep gaming.